Okay, so I will talk about the basic research we do at Tactile Research Laboratory at Institute of Biomedical Engineering. And then we have some neuroengineering applications recently. So these pictures are from our lab. We do recordings from nerves and from the brain. So the upper photographs are from our physiology rig. And then we also do human psychophysics, non-invasive studies for the sense of touch. We have a very good isolated room here for it's a vibration and soundproof booth. So far, I've been in the institute for about 17 years now. So we did studies on skin structure. You can see some micrographs here. So we studied mechanoreceptors in the skin. We recorded from mechanoreceptive nerves. So this is an example of action potentials. We studied some transduction processes. So this is a picture. Actually, it was cited by a group who received the Nobel Prize this year. So we were very proud. We studied the somatosensory cortex of rats. We used special electrodes. This is one of them. This is implanted over the cortical surface. And we also do tactile psychophysics to understand how these very small mechanical vibrations are felt. And recently we started neural engineering research, especially neuroprosthetics. And we also have a recently published book about it. So this kind of summarizes all different type of techniques we use. We sometimes get data from the literature, like these mechanoreceptive distributions, but we can also get some of the data from our lab. And typically we use data from spike data from afferents and from cortical neurons. We use very tiny electrodes. So this technology is a means for collaboration. So this is an example where both recording and microinjection can be done. And recently for BCI applications, we use these types of electrodes which are implanted in the cortex or over the cortex. We combine data from all of these to make up some models. Sometimes they're very simple conceptual models, sometimes just very simple mathematical equations, but sometimes very elaborate computational models. And based on those, we can predict animals' behavior and also human psychophysics. Maybe some of you would remember the series, TV series Seinfeld. This is a very eccentric character from that series. So we get interesting results from human psychophysics. So how did we start the neuroengineering research? I have some international colleagues who are experts on the sense of touch. So at that time, people were using BCIs for only motor control, but they soon realized that we also have to introduce sensory feedback, especially somatosensory feedback, either in terms of tactile or proprioceptive information. So originally, as signals were recorded from the motor cortex, they were decoded and used for moving arms. So this is important, especially for subjects like people who had spinal cord injuries or people who have diseases like ALS, neurodegenerative diseases, and also for amputees. And so for moving these robotic arms or devices for navigation as well, we need some information to be fed back to the user. And this can be obtained from sensors on the hand, for example. And then that sensory information is then encoded into electrical pulses in this example, and then fed back to the somatosensory cortex. So being inspired by this research, we actually developed a similar thing, but just for the sensory part for rats. So we have a very elaborate setup for these electronics and instrumentation devices. So we teamed up with researchers, Mehmet Hoca from our department and Şenol Hoca from EE Electronics Department. So we built a device which can be worn by rats, and it has sensory surface here, as you can see. And then signals are processed from that sensory surface. And then based on a psychophysical model, which we established previously for that rat, those sensory signals are converted to electrical impulses, which are fed back to the brain. And then the animal, as you can see in this video, can feel touch, not by a vibration directly exciting its skin nerves or afferents, but by that artificial sensation created in the brain. And then it can respond to those behaviorally. If it feels it and presses the right lever, then it is a hit. If it presses left, it's a miss. But then we can get these false alarms, misses, and correct rejection ratios and characterize the animal's psychophysical behavior. So after finalizing that, this was supported by TÜBİTAK, and it was a successful project. Then we teamed up with some researchers from EU. So one of those researchers is in a nanotechnology center, and it's part of the graphene flagship. So this is one of the two biggest research concentrations in Europe. One is the human brain, and the other is graphene. And so they actually manufacture the state-of-the-art graphene technology. And the graphene is used in many different materials. And here it's used in electrodes. So the consortium actually had 5 members. The ICN2 manufactured these electrodes. The UAB used them in peripheral nerves, and we use them for cortical surface recording and stimulation. So here the dura is intact, and so it's a kind of less invasive than penetrating electrodes, but we can get good recordings. So this is an example. So, and the other partners, one was a company who develops neurostimulators, and the other is actually, again, a very well-established researcher who's part of a, again, bigger group in Sweden who they make osseointegrated robotic hands and arms prosthesis. So they use this technology, or they will in future may use the graphene technology for both recording and stimulation. So we had a lot of work done despite the shortcomings of COVID. So we're about to finish this project early next year. And now, what are some collaboration topics in neural engineering? So I'm very open to different collaborations. Sorry, either formal or informal. When I say informal, it may not even involve some funding, because many things can be done remotely nowadays. So we have a lot of data as well. So we can collaborate on tactile sensors and displays like haptic interfaces. We did this with Koç University previously. It was again a very successful collaboration. We can collaborate regarding wireless devices, wearables, or implants. So we have a very good animal facility in the main campus. As you know, we can use the vivarium there. We have some neurosurgeons who are helping us also. We can collaborate regarding electrodes and drives, neural interfaces. Like in iNavigate, we actually discuss with the company 3D. So they have these very interesting electrode drives which can be applied on rats. And we can also collaborate regarding finite element modeling, which we don't actually do. So for some of these applications, we have to know more about the mechanics, for example, of the skin or the electrical properties of the neural tissue. So collaboration can be done in that respect. And then eventually machine learning and signal analysis processing. So we have a lot of data being collected. It's a high dimensional data. So we need actually people who can support us to analyze that. Recently, we're part of also a newly approved Flagera project. This has 5 partners, 2 from Spain and 2 from France. And in Turkey, Boğaziçi University is the lead, but we have neurosurgeons from Fatih Sultan Mehmet University and neuroanatomists from Ege University who are helping us. So the topic of this project is FST, Functional Stimulation System for Rehabilitation of Gait in rats. But these are rats, it's a rat spinal cord model. And then this new graphene technology will be applied there. So some of our partners will, establish that model. Some partners will study again the peripheral electrodes, and also very detailed characterization of the gait, measuring EMG, etc. Our part is, again, mostly more cortical, about cortical plasticity. So, we do the experiments at the final stage after spinal cord injury. What are the cortical responses? And this type of FST stimulation can also help to recover some circuits within the spinal cord due to propriospinal tracts. So we will be able to judge whether that happens properly or to what extent. So I think that was it. So we have many students, of course, working in the lab and who have worked. I typically put a nice lab picture at the end, but this time, because of the time limitations, I did not do that. But we have been funded by TÜBİTAK and some international agencies, and I'm also grateful to the support of all students.